Have you ever struggled to tell the difference between your intuition and the endless mind chatter in your head? You want to make the best choice, but you seriously don't know which is the voice of your higher self, or God's voice, or what I call the little inner voice. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can start to identify your intuition's voice clearly so that you can start trusting it and making better decisions in your life. I'll also share my real life examples of when I ignored my inner voice and regretted it, and when I listened to it and it really made a difference to the survival of my husband and myself when we lived on a boat. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to recognize and trust the voice of your intuition. Before you can identify your intuition, you need to know exactly what it is, and know it's not just a random thought or wishful thinking. Your intuition is that quiet inner voice. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It's different from your everyday voice, which is often filled with worries, thoughts about yesterday, plans for tomorrow, arguments, or even other people's voices that you've sort of taken on. Unlike fear and anger, which can come across as loud, urgent, insistent, angry sort of type thoughts, your intuition is quiet and gently whispers suggestions. It may even come in the form of a question like, what if you did such and such? I used to ignore my intuition when I was younger, and I can remember once when my son was a tiny toddler and I was leaving the house to take some trash out to the rubbish bin, or what you call a dumpster in America, and I had my son with me and I had the trash, and my little inner voice said to me as I was leaving, "What happens if the door shuts behind you?" And I went, "Oh, it never shuts behind me, it never locks, it's not a problem." And I went out. 5 minutes later, bang, there I was with trash in one hand, son under the other arm. I had no shoes on. I had to go to the neighbours to make a phone call to call my husband, who worked 3/4 of an hour away, to come and let me back in the house. So not listening to my intuition that time, I'd heard the voice, I'd argued with it, and I paid the price, and so had my husband. Recognizing your intuition is the first step towards trusting it. And the more you tune in, the more easily you'll be able to recognize it. If you've already got a fairly clear inner voice like me, maybe if you're strong-willed, you need to learn to argue less with it and listen more to it. So how do you know if it's your intuition talking or if it's just your mind running around in circles? Mental noise is what can go on in your head when you're trying to make a decision, and your mind starts throwing out all sorts of ideas and scenarios like, what if I make the wrong choice? Maybe I should wait and think about it more. But what if I miss my chance? I always do this. I always overthink everything. Know that one? Meanwhile, your intuition is sitting quietly in the background, smiling lovingly at you, offering you calm and simple feeling or knowing as to what to do without any pressure, just a soft nudge toward the best choice. Another example from my life, from when my husband and I lived on a boat, my intuition really came through and helped us out in what could have turned into a situation that was really scary. I was sitting on the deck having a cup of tea before we set sail, just looking out at the sea. Mind was not focusing on anything at all, and my little inner voice said, "How good are you at remembering a rolling hitch?" I had a really strong feeling to get our RYA handbook out and remind myself how to tie a rolling hitch. Later that day we were sailing and we had the head sail full out, and we noticed by looking at the waves that the wind ahead of us was picking up quite seriously. So we knew that we needed to reef the sail or make it smaller. Of course, when Baz said to me, the furling line's not coming through the jammer, I went, "Oh, it's okay. Let's get another line. I can do a rolling hitch. We'll at least be able to support it round another winch while we work out what to do." So we did that. We also managed to use black electrical tape to wrap around the outside of the sheath and make it slim enough to be able to pull it through the jammer. If I hadn't listened to my intuition earlier, that could have been a really bad situation, because with the sail out as far as it was and jammed, and the wind coming, we could have actually suffered a knockdown, which would have been really scary. So thankfully, my intuition came through that day, and thankfully, I actually listened to and acted on it. So yeah, how do you tell if it's your intuition? If it's full of worry, chaotic, and all over the place, it's not the voice of your intuition. Intuition is quiet, gentle, and wise. And it will even give you a heads up in advance. Learning this distinction could literally be life-saving. Just like a muscle, the more you use your intuition, the stronger it gets. And there are actually simple ways to tune into it. Practicing meditation, self-awareness, and journaling are all really good practices. I found that meditation really helps me. In fact, I went on to teach meditation, and I do have some on Insight Timer app and some on this channel as well if you're interested. Another great way is to write down your intuitive nudges in a journal and write down the outcomes when you follow them and the outcomes when you don't. And then you can compare, and over time you'll actually learn to discern much better what the voice of your intuition or your little inner voice sounds like. You know, for some it might be more of a voice in your head, or it could come across as one of your thoughts. It may come more as a sense of knowing, or it might come as a flash, like a picture. You might get a pull in your gut in a certain direction. They're all ways that your higher self can communicate with you. And a lot of it depends on how you process the world personally. I often got clear guidance when I was little, but a lot of people, like my mum, told me I was being silly, so I learned to ignore it. But one night it was so strong, I hadn't listened to the quiet voice in my head, so I started to get really strong gut instincts, and that's when I listened to it. When I was about 19, I was in a club with my big sister, and all night I sort of had the thought, I want to go home now. But I had no logical reason to say, let's go. Everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves, so I didn't say anything. After a while, I got a really urgent feeling in my stomach. It was a sense that I really need to leave now. So I said to my sister, I want to go home. We went into the ladies' toilets and she said, what's happened? Has somebody said something to you? And I went, no. And she went, well, somebody copped a feel? And I went, no, I just really want to go home. So after a few more minutes of really puzzled interrogation, she kind of like looked a bit concerned because I was acting weird, but she walked me home. And it wasn't actually far from where she lived. So she decided that she would walk back because we'd left a girlfriend back at the club. And in the time that she'd walked me back to her place and then gone back to the club, there'd been a really big bar fight and a few people had been seriously injured. So I have to say, I'm really glad that I paid attention to my gut instincts that night. I certainly started to trust my gut instincts a lot more after that incident. As I realised that my intuition was right more often than it was wrong, or that I was paying attention to the right voice more often than I was paying attention to the wrong voice, I really started to trust it more. To help you, if you want to get clearer, I've created a gratitude and affirmations journal, and that will help you to quiet the noise, align with your higher self, and really start to hear and trust your inner guidance. You can grab your own copy of the Gratitude and Affirmation Journal in the link below. Another thing that you can do is start asking yourself open-ended questions like, how do I feel about this option now? Or what should I consider right now? And then remain open to the answer. It might come as a thought, a feeling, or a body sensation. Just start to trust the information that you're getting. Do this often, and the more you engage with it, the stronger your connection with the little inner voice will become. And the stronger it becomes, the more you'll trust it. Building a relationship with your little inner voice or your intuition does take practice, and it can take time, and you may not always get it right. But once you start, you'll wonder how you ever made decisions without it. Did you know that your intuition often speaks through your dreams? Dreams can be a powerful way for your subconscious and your intuition to send you messages when your logical mind or the mind of the ego is quiet and out of the way. An example of this is I had a dream about an old flame, and we hadn't been in touch for 12 or so years. In fact, he lived on the other side of the world. But I had this dream and it was really strong and it was totally out of the blue. But from the dream, I had real cause to be concerned about him. So I rang his mum in the UK and I got his phone number and I rang him up. That took a bit of courage, I have to say. Not long after that, I was visiting my mum on the other side of the world and he wasn't too far away, so I actually went to visit him as well. And you know what? That man became my husband. My intuition brought us back together. So pay attention to your dreams because sometimes they may hold more guidance than you realise. Actually, starting a dream journal isn't a bad idea. So what changes when you actually start trusting your intuition? You'll find that life flows more easily, decisions become clearer, you stop feeling so conflicted and start feeling much more aligned. And you make choices that really resonate with you rather than being overtaken by fear or doing what you feel pressured to do from people on the outside. Your intuition's voice guides you in the right direction. One of the reasons I know this is because that's how I've experienced it, but also the voice of your spirit will never interfere with your free will. The more I trusted my intuition, the more I saw how it worked for me, in my favour, and everyone else actually. It's helped me avoid bad situations and it's helped me find incredible opportunities, and it's also helped me to reconnect with the love of my life. And once you start listening more closely to your little inner voice, it will become a really valuable guide. Your intuition is your built-in compass, and when you follow it, life just works better. Now that you know how to identify and trust your intuition, it's time to start practicing. Try journaling, paying attention to your dreams, and start noticing when you get that quiet nudging in a certain direction. And don't forget to grab my free gratitude and affirmations journal to help you connect more deeply with your inner wisdom. The link is below. If you've enjoyed this video, you'll really enjoy this next one because it will help you to take what you've learned here and get much more closely aligned with your higher self's inner voice. My name's Ansha. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.